Welcome on now to the 67th annual Muskrat Derby here at the river.
These are the true and forever keepers of Arctic security and sovereignty. And for the anxious talk in Canada of what geopolitical dangers lurk over the horizon,
Okay.
this moment is sheer joy.
Go, 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 go.
The Spring Jamboree in Inuvik, Northwest Territories, a few hundred kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Days of races and games on the frozen Mackenzie River. And more fun than most people have ever had playing musical chairs in the arena.
Go grab a man!
It's a strong community with rightfully strong opinions about how to secure the North.
Every decision that's made in the Arctic should happen in the Arctic by Arctic people.
Thank you!
I grew up in an era where my grandmothers were like, are the Russians seriously coming? That's what the old ladies would talk about. And I think having the military presence will give a sense of security for those in the Arctic.
What is it like during an election campaign to see would-be prime ministers standing at a podium talking about the Arctic?
Useless. Sorry, but useless. I just find they think we're just a little dot. They try to say they're going to help us, and things are getting worse.
I mean, they're trying to get votes, and I might be dead wrong, but we've had lots of promises up here. We're going to do this and we're going to do that.
Well, you've got evidence of promises unfulfilled.
I'm not trying to sound like a backwood redneck hick, but that's what they do. They promise you the moon and give you dirt.
People here understand that all across the North there are signs of unfulfilled promises.
The development of Port Nanisivik.
A deepwater port in Nanisivik, for example, pledged by the Harper government in 2007, lies unfinished and so far unusable. Keep an eye on Inuvik, this community of just over 3,000. It's one of 3 places identified by the previous government for operational support hubs. And head down the highway to the furthest north you can drive in Canada, the even smaller community of Tuktoyaktuk, right on the Arctic Ocean. Conversations about threats here look like a lot of things. Not many of them are about enemy nations. To you, what's a threat to life here?
It's probably something happening to the land or to the water. It means everything to us. And if you want to know what Arctic sovereignty means to me, it's the people who live in the north. We've always been here. We've been a part of Canada, and we always will be.
And without addressing climate change, living here will get tougher. Those are the threats most of the Inuvialuit need addressing. But for the Canadian government and military, more immediate is that heightened security threat. Tuktoyaktuk was one of the places to host this year's Operation Nanook a few weeks ago. The largest Arctic exercise Canada and its allies have held here in nearly 2 decades. But hardly the first time Tuktoyaktuk has been at the sharp end of worries. Look at these old radar installations. These are part of the DEW line, the distant early warning line that was built after the Second World War. The purpose of that was to detect enemy bombers coming up over the pole. It's old technology. It was retired in the 1980s and replaced with something new. But even that is out of date because the threats keep evolving. Canada's modernization of surveillance, though, hasn't been fast, and its military spending not sufficient for the likes of Rob Hubert.
We see D&D desperately trying to push the government to do more stuff, including the purchase of the F-35s, but nothing is done.
Hubert is one of Canada's leading experts on Arctic threats, and he doesn't mince words.
If nuclear war is to occur between the major powers, and particularly the Americans and the Soviets/Russians, it is because something has gone wrong in the Arctic.
When you say that to people, what is the response you get from them?
Most people don't realize just how dangerous everything has become.
To get a sense of the risk, visually shift the way you look at Canada. From the globe with the Arctic at the top, spin it. Now with the Arctic at the center, what do you see? Finland, Sweden, Norway, Greenland, Canada, and the US, all effectively facing Russia and its growing threat. From 2007 on, Russia reopened 50 closed Soviet-era military sites and built a series of new airfields and bases. This is the Rogachevo Air Base, for example. What it looked like in 2006, not much there. Same place, 2022. CBC News' visual investigation team determined these are parking and storage areas for missile transporters and reload packs. Right here, you can see from the shadows the missile launchers are raised. So Russia's investments are huge, its actions provocative. Buzzing American fighters near Alaska back in September. But it's not just Russia. Consider China. It's not an Arctic nation, but interested in the shipping routes of a warming Arctic Ocean, a polar Silk Road. What else does it want?
Are they going to develop submarines that have under ice capability? They're introducing 3 new classes of subs. And so the question is, are any of these being given a capability that all of a sudden they could show up in Arctic waters?
Understanding the Chinese threat is harder because there's often secrecy around China's ambitions. But people talk, and in the north, they keep their eyes open.
I'm aware the Canadian government had to remove some Chinese acoustic mirrors that are in my backyard, as I always refer to it as.
Where were those removed from, and when was that?
I can't say exactly where they were.
Okay.
They were removed last year.
Dwayne Smith is the chair of the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, which manages the land claim agreement for this area. This, for him, is the moment for Canada's government to step up even more.
We need that flag flying high and proud.
You need more than a flag, though.
Yes, now is the time to invest in this part of Canada so that it's visible. We're not sitting back as a country. I don't think people actually realize how large this country is. To have a community of 80 people on an island the size of France, those people are on the front of what it means to be Canadian, but to represent Canada's sovereignty.
Smith and this Inuvik community know the conversation happening now is especially frenzied because of the election and because of Donald Trump. That's both frustrating and yet important, especially if it means the people who've long stood on guard for Canada find themselves getting the support they've long needed.